Gather, veterans. It's time to join the fight. The long war begins.
This is The Long War. I'm Rob Baer, and joining me once again are my partners in crime, Kenny Boucher and Wyatt Turk. What's up, guys?
Yo, dog, great to be here.
Yeah, what's up?
Wyatt, you were looking down when I was talking.
I'm playing with magnets.
Yeah, you are.
I fidget during the podcast slot, so I just play with my stack of magnets.
I do that sometimes as well.
Dude, I was talking to Squad Marks today, and I didn't realize that he got like a super punch. So like he has all the sizes of magnets, those stick-on magnets. He punches them all. Like you can buy any size magnet now. And I've been cutting out like everything 60 mils or bigger, like a hobo. For the past year, I was like, no, when did you start doing this? He's like, and I was like,
Dude, I should
magnets don't even
look into that.
How do they even work?
So many, dude.
I was buying these like sheet magnets from Amazon. You can get like a stack of them for like $5, and like to trace out the base and like slice it out.
Dude,
like a peasant.
Like 60 cents to get a pre-cut one. Like, come on.
Like a peasant.
That's all I'm saying.
So we got so much going on this week. It's been endless cycle of, on the precipice of a new edition. So many free topics to discuss week after week after week. We barely even have to try anymore.
Yeah, it's nice.
Shit,
I was getting real close to using ChatGPT to write this podcast.
I know.
Oh my God. I used it to write a letter.
Can you read me that letter?
Yeah, I'll read it. Here, I'll just read it to you.
Yeah.
I had to write a letter. I keep getting this thing from the comptroller of Maryland saying I got employees in Maryland. I was like, I don't fucking have any employees in Maryland. Like, stop. And they're like, we're going to charge you things. And I'm like, I just logged into ChatGPT and I'm like, yo, write me a letter to comptroller of Maryland saying I don't have no employees and no liabilities in Maryland and leave me alone. And it like wrote me this letter.
That's a huge letter.
Yeah, don't read that letter, but is it good?
It's good.
Did you have to edit it?
All I had to do was,
Did you have to edit it?
No, all I had to do was put in like my email and my address and my EIN number. Dude, I was shocked.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, why are we even doing this anymore? Can't we get some of that AI, like fucking deepfake, fucking robot voice, like just chat GPT the fucking script of the podcast?
I mean, it's getting close. Get some Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
I think it's only been loaded with like trained with information up to like 2021.
So not quite. Okay. We're getting
most of our references are from the 90s.
Yeah.
I think we can get by.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Speaking of the 90s,
I'll see what it comes out with.
Let's see. Just played this brand new game. It's called Starship Troopers. What's the sub tagline? It's like extraction or extermination. Starship Troopers extermination. And it is Starship Troopers in the sense of the Verhoeven movies. But it's bare bones. It's just a video game, first person shooter. You hop in with like up to 16 other people in these little 4-man fire teams with proximity chat and team chat. And you're like, go here, mine some ore, build this base, protect it from the bugs. And it is like pure dopamine the entire time. And people are like, dude, it's 100% marketed to like guys my age, like Kenny's age, where it's like, we liked that movie as kids and everybody is super into it. People are on the comms, like quoting the film and like saying dumb shit from the Starship Troopers universe. And everybody is having a blast. And you're just, spraying bullets as fast as you can at the arachnids.
So Left 4 Dead killing bug style is what Bleez says.
Yeah, it's similar. Like there's some uniqueness to it. I think the base building thing is actually pretty cool because of how you do it. And it all looks, like the I forget the fort that they like the fire base they had to defend, but it's all that architecture. It looks really pretty. And there's like 3 different classes you can play to give different roles on the team. And it's just pure fun. It's like $20 game too. It's fantastic.
Fuck yeah.
Hey, Kenny.
Yes, sir.
I just asked GTP, whatever it is. I just asked it if our next level paintings tutorials for Warhammer are good.
Oh no.
Do you want to hear what it said?
Yes.
It says, yes, next level paintings tutorials for Warhammer are generally considered to be of high quality and beneficial for hobbyists and painters in the Warhammer community. Next level painting is a popular YouTube channel, an online resource created by professional miniature painter and artist Kenny Boucher. Kenny is known for his expertise in painting miniatures, particularly those from Warhammer 40,000 and Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And there's 3 more fucking paragraphs.
Holy fuck. I knew being respectful to our robot overlords would pay off. Thanks, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the show. We'll roll out to Wyatt's Cave of Wonders. Touch nothing but the lamp.
You know it. Would you rather, for the rest of your life, smell like garlic bread or steak?
Oh, no. I can smell it on myself.
Yeah, think of it like deodorant or cologne. Like you're not gassing out like a whole room, like some Sex Panther action, but like people get close to you, they will smell it.
Steak, any particular type? Brazilian steakhouse, like
You can decide.
Well, I can decide?
Yeah, you can decide. I kind of think all steak smells kind of about the same. I mean, there is some variation.
Just talking about like seared meat, or does it have herbs or anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's seasoned.
Oh, man. I like garlic bread the way it smells, but I know it can get a little repulsive after a while. But steak smells good, but also that's kind of a weird smell to just like be on my skin and stuff. Like, it's kind of hard to justify. Like, you know, like if you eat garlic bread, you smell like garlic bread for a while. You know what I mean? But like, you don't smell like a steak for a while. So it's like, yo, what the fuck is this guy up to with steak?
Oh, but maybe you should. Who doesn't want to smell like meat? What does meat smell like, by the way?
Yeah, I was saying, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
It smells really good if you're about to eat the steak.
Yeah, but this has to get...
If a person smelled like steak, that's a red flag.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, it's a little...
That's some Tyrannosaurus shit.
It make me a little nauseous, I think, after a while. Whereas, like, obviously garlic bread is super pungent, but easier to kind of explain away. So I think I'd pick garlic bread. Be like, yeah, I just ate some garlic bread. You know, like, it makes sense. Like, it's like, yeah, you know, smells like garlic bread. It's weird, but like, that's what happens. Not, this guy fell in a vat of steaks. What the fuck?
Vat of steaks. That's a steak factory.
I don't really have smell buds, so
I mean,
I'm not really sure what.
It's about how people are going to interact with you going forward.
But I have noticed that the mosquitoes don't like me when I've eaten garlic, so I'm pro garlic.
I'm also pro garlic. I love garlic. Whenever a recipe is like, yo, now just dice up a clove of garlic, I'm like, or like a nubbin of garlic or whatever, I'm like, dog, you meant entire blocks of garlic, dog. Entire fucking...
Yeah, obviously.
Like, obviously you fucked this recipe up. We'll put a tablespoon of diced garlic in this shit. Please.
All the garlic.
Yeah, cup, minimum. Fuck out of here. Yeah, either way, no more camping. Imperious Seth in chat says, like, yeah, not going out of the woods smelling like a fucking seared steak.
I feel like that would not be a good thing. It's like, what's for dinner? This guy.
Dogs are going to get a little bit too friendly.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That could be bad.
Garlic. Gross. I know no matter which one I pick, my lady's not going to be happy. Okay.
Oof,
Good one. Thank you.
that was a good one.
So let's kick it over to Rob for the news, which this promises to be a spicy installment of Dumpster Wars.
Yeah, got a bit of a dumpster war update, but just want to go over the pricing and allocations for this week for the G-Dub stuff. So the Ashes of Faith Kill Team box with the Inquisition warband and everything, and all the campaign rules that they are previewing. Warhammer Fest spent a whole half hour talking about how dope this box would be and everything, and how great it is. Allocated 2 per store, $160. Meanwhile, Plastic Vindicator, $70. Get as many as you want, apparently. And the Horus Heresy campaign book / supplement, first supplement, is direct order only from Games Workshop for $60. It is available on e-readers, so you can get it, from Black Library and have it on PDF or whatever, pretty much immediately, and not have to wait for it to come in. And that's those are the releases for this week. Now there's still a lot of stuff on deck. I mean, tons of separate releases in all these boxes, of course. Not to mention that the line hasn't come out yet either. I don't know what people are waiting for as far as that goes, but I'm sure we'll see Lion and he'll get new rules and people will be all super hype again for him. But it is a dope model, and I think people just like the Primarchs in general. But yeah, there's that. And also Joy Toy previewed the first Primarch action figure. Guilliman's getting a Primarch figure, and they showed a picture of it. And it looks dope as fuck.
Joy Toy?
It does.
I did not see that. Hold on, I gotta look it up.
And they have a picture of him standing over the Primaris Invictus. What is it? Invictus bodyguards.
Mm-hmm.
And they come up to his waist. Now they're crouched. They're kind of crouched, so it might not be the best picture, but it was just kind of. It's they look like little kids.
Oh shit! It looks tight as fuck.
It looks really good.
They do look like babies.
They look like small children.
They look like hobbits. Like the hobbits after they ate some of that, drank some of that juice and got a little taller.
Yeah,
running around with the little swords and shit.
Yeah, so that'll be a very high interest model. Also, one of the Grandmaster Grey Knight Flex, whatever his name is, they previewed him as well.
Calvin Drago?
No, unfortunately, it was not Drago. I would remember his name.
Who else is in the fucking Grey Knights? Crow?
Who was the guy they came out with during Psychic Awakening?
Voldus?
Was that him? He was like a super psyker, but also.
Is that his name?
Hold on, let me get a look. Now I'm confused.
It's got to be Voldus.
He had a hammer, though. Yeah, I think he's just a generic Grandmaster. No, well, they all have psychic codes, so I think he's just a generic Grandmaster.
I think it's Voldus.
Is it Voldus? I don't think it. Maybe it is. I don't know. Either way, it looks dope. So kind of a little double dip there of cool releases. So obviously, and I heard from a lot of stores today, obviously stores are upset about the whole allocation thing again, because if you do the math on it, if you're a store and you just want those 2 Kill Team boxes, you make it's no money. You get 2. And it's a great GW overall is a great margin to have. It's a great margin product to have in your store. It turns relatively fast, not as fast as packs of Magic cards, obviously, but to have the pots of paint in there, they're quick. They turn.
Is that what's in those boxes now?
What's that?
They put the paints in the boxes.
What box? Well, I mean, they ship them in boxes. Yeah.
No. Oh, you're talking about 2 separate things. I thought you were talking about this Kill Team box.
Yeah, no, they don't come in there. I'm just saying overall, GW having in your store, it's a great product. But, after, going on 5 months of this, stores are really upset. I heard from a lot of, Kenny's hey, stop in my inbox with your, your rules leaks. I get a lot of stores just like, it's always the same story. Like, dude, they need to get a shit. Can't make money. Considering dropping it. It takes such a big chunk of my store to have all this stuff in there, and I get it. So I'm really hoping to see a very strong release for 10th edition. So a lot of stores, can make their money and do their thing, because
this is like the best time to stock Warhammer 40K. Correct. Is when we have a new edition. Like, it's exciting.
So if they can't get this stuff out the door, and there's some warning signs, because they said during the live stream at Warhammer Fest, they're like, yeah, we're gonna do Warhammer Old World. It's not gonna have a starter. It's gonna be some releases. And they're just kind of like very vague. It's just like kits are going to come out, and there isn't going to be a starter for it, because supposedly they're just having a really hard time getting this stuff out the door and getting it made, getting it out the door. Their forecasting are all off. They're still riding high on 18 months ago numbers. We've seen it. There's problems, right? And so from a store perspective, they're on the fence. They're like, yo, this 10th edition better rock my fucking socks, or I got to look at something else.
I mean, it's a windfall, an unexpected windfall. The second that we knew 10th edition was coming this summer.
Right.
Like, as a game store owner, like, you're like, oh, fuck, that's great. Especially with all the dope releases that are coming out for other game systems and things. But you're right. Like, if you're talking about 10th edition, this hype train, which is a windfall, potentially, you're thought to just 2 of each. That's not really usable sums of product that help, that are going to be that windfall. It's not a windfall now. It's like a fucking, like, I have to buy these so people don't fucking leave my game store. Cause like, that's the nature of the Warhammer, as Wyatt mentioned earlier in the pregame. Like, we got a lack of loyalty in the fucking 40K game store department, for the customer base. And I can't, like, so like, I understand that, like, same thing with the Contrast release when they dropped that. They pressured a game store into investing in Contrast through making the fan base want it so badly through their crazy hype marketing campaign that a game store kind of had to get it, or their clientele will go to the store that did have it. And anyone who's like our age, to Wyatt's point earlier, it's like, how many people have heard a story of a group of people being mad because the game store didn't do X or did X, going to the game store across town, starting a coup, and then opening their own game store and then bringing all their fucking people with them. That's like...
It happens a lot.
That's like half the time. So like, you're in a rock and a hard spot as a game store owner when it comes to stocking Warhammer 40K product.
Mm-hmm.
As Rob mentioned, I get that, man. Like, like, what are they? Like, I don't think you should. I don't think you should stock it. Like, I wouldn't.
As a game store, I mean, it is a significant investment in table space. We've gone over how much it.
Yeah, you have an article about how much a game table costs on average, nationwide prices. Mm-hmm. How much it costs. One game table.
I mean, and that's pre-COVID numbers. Obviously rent's gone up in a lot of places and things, and it's definitely something to consider. And stores are looking at, hey, these card games, it's less margin, but it turns quicker. Or, hey, these other games, it's less margin, but I don't have to put up with as much bullshit, and I can create my own community from the ground up. I can see the appeal for sure. But here's the thing, it's been since February with all these allocation numbers, like the 2Zs and the 3Zs and the 5Zs. And it's been rough on stores. But something I wanted to show everybody, if you're not watching live, you obviously can't see this. So, I'm going to try to describe it as much as possible. But I got some stuff here. So this is a sealed case of gas.
Rob is holding a box with no labels on it to people who are driving to work.
Well, there is a label saying what it is. It's obviously a gaseous, right? It says what it is. There's no shipping label on this. I didn't peel any shipping labels off or anything like that. You can see. right? It's a sealed box, and I had this shipped to me specially, so it wouldn't have anything on it, right? Well, you might notice this little white or this little yellow sticker.
There's a torn yellow sticker, guys. If you were driving to work,
with a barcode on it. It's a little faded out, but I have another one here that fell off another box somewhere. Here it is, and you can clearly see what this says.
And the yellow sticker that he is presenting to us, that is untorn, that he pulled off of a different box, says
write off.
Says write off.
It literally says write off on the sticker. So it's a sealed case of 6 Agassiz boxes, retail $200 each. And what this represents is something that left Games Workshop's warehouse for whatever reason. Maybe it was supposed to go to the dump. Maybe got sold to a liquidator. I can't tell you for sure. But I ended up buying it from a liquidator in Memphis, Tennessee, United States.
These are your dumpster work contact people, right?
Yeah. They hit me up and they're like, yo, I got this box. What can you tell me about it? I was like, oh, that's a good one, man. It hasn't even come out separately yet. You're going to want that. That's a good one. And they're like, yeah, we got a bunch of them. And I was like, do I even want to know? And they're like, we got 3,000 of them.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, that's a lot.
3,000 boxes with 6 in each?
Yeah. So, you're talking, what is that? 18,000 units. Now, in a lot of cases, GW only brings in like 20, 25,000 of these things, right? So just let that sink in for a minute. Like, how many of these potentially might not have sold back in March or whatever it was, right? And this is a fairly recent release to get, but here's where it gets even more interesting is this is the only thing that Games Workshop has not allocated in this period we're talking about. And it's almost like the allocations are actually working because they got stuck with a shit.
That's what you just said is like, you said this is one of the only boxes they did not allocate. And you know a guy through your dumpster war contacts who has 18,000 of those motherfuckers.
I've seen the pictures.
And these boxes are labeled as write-off, barcode scan write-off, Games Workshop, liquidation. So the one time they don't allocate, they get stuck with 18,000 as a minimum unsold, unmoved product.
But you got to remember too, like and same thing with Apple. Like you won't see a sale on the iPad or the iPhone. There's no sales. No. They're not allowed to put this shit on their website. There's no sale on Games Workshop. Stores can only sell at 15% or less, right? So unless GW has a way to push these things out the door, whether it's literally supposed to be destroyed and savvy entrepreneurs are like, hey, this shit's like worth $200 each one of these little boxes in here, and then it goes into the underground like liquidation secondhand network and then surfaces, or they specifically sold it to liquidators, which they have done in the past, and I have interfaced with them as well. If I can
jump in, what's interesting about that is like, so GW could, which they don't really do because, right, it's luxury goods. The branding mechanism there is you don't throw discounts out there. You have to add value, which the value is something you invented based on your luxury. And so you can sell things that add value, right? And things that are kind of like in the not value added category are like, buy one, get one frees, 20% offs. Those are devalued, right? So GW has built this like brand of luxury where they are not allowed to, based on their own guidelines, to devalue their product because it will call into question their insane price tags that they've established, right? Based on that luxury perception. So even if they did, let's say they just changed their policy and they said, here we go, guys, this is the new sick deal on these boxes. They would still kind of just be tricking people into, who didn't want them to begin with into buying them now, right? It's not even like it was kind of already proved we didn't want them. So the inference that allocation works is still flawed because we just didn't want those. That's why we didn't buy them. But the only safe way to know what we're going to buy is to allocate. So even if they threw out discounts to try to move that, it's no different than, with one exception, it's no different than just liquidating. When you liquidate them all to some liquidator, you're like, cash in hand, here we go. We're done with it. It's a write-off. Now he has to go try to find homes for those things. Like,
right, but keep in mind too, if they're doing it that way, which they have, and I'm not going to get into the details, but there was specific restrictions given to those liquidators on how they were supposed to sell that merchandise. That's what, and that really is why I don't believe that these particular items were specifically sent to liquidators, because the way they were presented to me and sold to me is not a way that Games Workshop would approve of. And I know what happened to the rest of them.
Dumpster war contact, nailed it. Interesting.
So like, but when you see this, it's like, man, it's like, I kind of get both sides of the picture now. Like game stores want to make money, but GW's like stuck with shit.
They make a product that costs a shitload of fucking money and space to manufacture and guess if people are going to buy it. And even though they can do all the R&D in the world, you can't always tell when a banger is a banger. You know what I'm saying? And so,
but
you jump in. What were you saying?
Well, remember too, this release was kind of panned as well, because everybody was like, those guns look stupid. Literally was like, those guns look stupid. Remember? It was, dude, it was like meme-tastic.
Yeah, you're right. Something as simple as that could fucking derail a release. Like, absolutely. Like, Votan. Look, you know, like, any weird thing can happen. So, like, our market, not just our market, the market of moving product has vastly gone to pre-sale mentality, right? That's what Kickstarter is. Kickstarter it went from, hey, let's kickstart a business, to I am a business and this is how I pre-sell my product safely through a brand that people, for some reason, trust, which is Kickstarter. Because very few people would trust a website. The same thing with paywalls, right? The reason we use Patreon and not our own paywall is because no one trusts your own paywall. They trust Patreon. So the market is pre-sale. That's the safest way to make a physical product, is get people to give you the money before you make the shit. Duh. Right? Duh. So pretty much every one of these companies is trying to move toward that model. And that is unfortunately at the disadvantage to the game store. Right? When it goes to direct sale, pre-sale, all that someone loses out on that, and that's the game store. But it's logical as fuck, Rob, right?
I mean, I get both sides of it, you know, like I mean, it's kind of, the proof is in the pudding when you're like, this is the one thing they didn't allocate since February, and look where we're at, right? But game stores are still upset, right? So like, man, it's like, what do you do? Like, what is the solution? I couldn't tell you.
Here's the solution, man. Like we talked about it earlier. All right. How many times have we said on this podcast, you got to vote with your hobby dollars? If you think GW is doing something shady with your local game stores and stuff like that, you have to vote with your hobby dollars, which means you go to your game store and support it, because it provides you with a physical HQ for your community beyond a Discord server or a Facebook chat. So you need to support them. What that also means is you need to be willing. Part of that is to go without. So that means when you say, I want to get this shit from my store, and they're like, I was allocated it too, you go without, son. You don't go on GW's website and buy it. And I think a lot of people have not been going without. They just can't, like, they just need it too bad. I'm like the only guy I know when all that shit went down with the fucking 9th edition of Dominus box. I never got one, still don't have one. Literally, I went without. Like, I didn't break down and go get it from somewhere else. Like, that's the mentality you have to have if you want your game stores to be getting flooded with GW product so you can go there and play. It's the only way it works. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't fucking think it's going to happen. And I don't think game stores at this moment should be planning for a future where that does happen. Like, the writing's on the wall, man. It's going to be this shit's going to be pre-sale, direct sales. And it's going to move away from game stores more and more.
Yeah. And, I think the game store in general is just going to have to pivot, to a subscription based model, potentially, food and drinks, and, just stock what you can, special order it in, whatever. It's definitely going to be different in the next 10 years. And, you say something like that and you're like, oh, it's so easy to say things are going to be different in the next 10 years. But I mean, literally look back 10 years. This is 2013. This is 2023. Look back to 2013. What was even happening in 2013 in the hobby? Well, we got the first newest plastic tactical squad in 2013. They redid the Blood Angels, got their Terminators, also got their tactical squad. I forget what they called it, but it's got the claws and shit. There's if you look back to that and you look to now, just in the hobby in general, like they put out, I believe they put out their first 3D printed model, the Torox, came out, and it was in the pictures and it was wonky as fuck. And that was the very first time we saw GW actually using 3D printing for their own stuff. I mean, I can tell you where Spiky Bits was as a brand in 2013, what we were doing work-wise and things versus what we're doing now. And it changes a little over time. You don't necessarily notice it until you look back and then you're like, holy crap, and I think a lot of things are going to change. No,
that's change is inevitable, and it's been changing the whole time toward this direction relentlessly. Yeah, it's fucking wild. Dumpster Wars. I can't believe there's 18,000 of these fucking units. Man, what a loss. What a fucking loss, like in reality.
I mean, they'll still get their cost out of them, No,
I'm saying it. Yeah. If you have a projection, like, damn, this is how much money we expect to make off of this product. You didn't make that. That sucks. It's a lot of effort. Think about it. There's a lot of human effort went into the fucking creation of those 18,000 boxes that are
not to mention. I mean, not to even mention all the previews, all the copy, all the marketing. That was the majority of what we saw at LVO as far as the preview went, was all the Agasta stuff. Yeah,
there's no real solid solution here, man. Honestly, like that there's not a copacetic solution. I don't see one. I don't see one.
And I mean, they're even doing that, like you said, they're doing basically the Kickstarter, the pre-order thing. Like all the MTO stuff this week was delivery, and generally when they do it, it's delivery in 180 days. So like they have it in place. Like they could just pivot a little bit and do more MTO for the things that perhaps matter. Like, yo, hey, you didn't get the lion? We got you, dog. Like, do this MTO. We'll have it to you in 180 days. But they don't seem to want to do that either right now. So I'm just like,
no.
What? I don't, there's no point of reference for the things that are happening right now leading up to 10th.
Now,
it's just really interesting.
We're leading up to 10th. I feel bad for a game store owner that can't get his stuff in there. It's fucking, it sucks. Nothing we can do about it, turns out. And it's upsetting that they might not be able to, like they have this projected windfall that they might, that probably is not going to pan out. But speaking of 10th edition, if that's our dumpster war segment, Rob, we can move into what actually happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Wyatt caught some interesting intel this week on the Knights, which I think is an exciting topic, but also core rulebook discussions. I think you had 3 points you wanted to make on those leaks and stuff. I'll turn it over to you to break it down.
Yeah, so I think it was late last night or the night before last, I can't remember which, that a big portion of the 10th ed core rules leaked online. Looks like we're still missing a couple of pages here and there. Maybe they're not super important, but a lot of stuff is out. So we basically know how, movement, shooting phase, fight phase, like all that stuff works. It's all out there. You can start reading it. I'm sure you can find it. Not going to go over every single little thing. Like, the big takeaway is that it's still basically 9th edition. Like, this is the same skeleton rules that we've been playing since Aged, right? It's nothing dramatically different in a lot of things. One of the things we were speculating about was how the wound roll was going to be. Like, would it be the same? Would it be different? Because we're getting these huge toughness values on vehicles, and we were like, well, what if, little piddly guns at strength 3, strength 4 need an additional rule like lethal hits to be able to even wound these vehicles? Turns out that's not the case. The wound chart is exactly the same. So if, you have been playing 9th edition and you're used to that, this is not going to be a big shakeup as far as the core rules are concerned. You're still going to want to read through them when the new stuff comes out, because there are some micro changes here and there. There's some cleanup and some streamlining. And one of those is how the fight phase is going to work. I'm sure all of you know the clusterfuck that the fight phase was after we started getting fights first, fights last, fights makes you fight last after all eligible unit, like 15 different wordings for altering the steps in the fight phase. Well, now there is actually just a fights first phase in the fight phase. Yeah. And this is really interesting. So when you charge, like say Kenny and I are playing a game and I charge his guys with my guys, my unit gets a charge bonus. And what that does is it gives them fights first. Because the way the fight phase is going to work is you have step 1 and step 2. Step 1 is the fights first phase, where eligible units with that bonus are chosen first in the order of who is going to fight. And then
starting with defender?
Yes. So if both of us have fights first, let's say that you're playing, maybe a Slanesh unit. They get a lot of fights first. And I charge you with my Ultramarines, who get a charge bonus, which makes them fight first. Then the defender would pick the first eligible unit in the fights first step. Or if you don't, then you don't get to choose one because you don't have fights first units. So it just divides it really cleanly between those two things.
No, I love that, because like defender going first is my favorite part of that, because that's kind of how we've been settling this fight first with all our fucking clarifications. Because if you have a unit that like comes preloaded with always fights first, for a long time that didn't mean anything.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But now it's like no, like he charged me, but I'm still going first. He had to charge me to pretend to fight first. That's in my rules. So I love how it clarifies. We have a step called fights first, alternating starting with the defender with people with that role. That is fucking so clean.
And just to clarify, like we're using defender like colloquially as the person who's like going second.
The guy who did not initiate the charge.
Right. Because we are going to have those missions where like there is the attacker and the defender and they might have different secondary choices, that kind of thing. But you start choosing units to fight. And the first person to do so is whose turn it is not. It's just, you say defender because like I'm the attacker in this situation and Kenny would be the defender.
Yeah. Person whose turn it is not.
This is also really interesting because heroic intervention is no longer a set ability. It is a stratagem. And it's 2 CP. It's kind of a reaction. So it takes place in your opponent's charge phase just after an enemy unit ends a charge. And the target is 1 unit from your army that is within 6 inches of that enemy unit and would be eligible to declare a charge against that enemy unit if it were your charge phase. The effect is your unit now declares a charge that targets only that enemy unit, and you resolve that charge as if it were your charge phase. You still have to roll 2d6 and make the charge. Restrictions, you can only select a vehicle unit from your army if it is a walker. Note that even if this charge is successful, your unit does not receive any charge bonus this turn.
What an awesome reaction rule. Like, we've got Overwatch now that can take place not just when you're getting charged. And now we've got a decent distance, 6 inches. So you can set up pretty defensively with units to support units, and 6 inches to activate, 2d6 to make it. We got some reactions, guys.
Yeah. And this is it's such a great reaction too, because if the unit that you heroic intervene with has the fight's first rule from anywhere, you are now put in that step as his chargers. And because it's not my turn, I get to select a unit in the fight's first step before Kenny does, which is a huge power reversal.
Yep.
Really interesting. There's a bunch of really cool stratagems. Overwatch is in the movement or charge phase, and it's kind of like Auspex Scan now, where the target is within 24 inches, and it's still a hit roll of 6 is required and all that kind of stuff, but it does create this much larger exclusion zone for when Overwatch can happen, and because it can happen in the movement phase, that adds an extra layer of complexity. Go to ground is back as a stratagem, and it gives units, all models in the unit have a 6-up invul save and have the benefit of cover, which is really nice if you want that unit to survive. And Tank Shock is back as a stratagem, and it's vehicles. So it can also work with dreadnoughts as well as tanks and anything else with the vehicle keyword. And it's it's impact hits, like mortal wound impact hits. Really interesting there. As far as that stuff is concerned, the core rules are relatively the same, with some differences in terrain, how that's going to work. So units can move over terrain if it's classified as 2 inches or shorter. Just everybody can just walk over it or roll over it, whatever. And if it's higher than 2, then you have to go up and over or around. And then the one thing that we're kind of missing is how infantry and stuff is going to interact with certain pieces of terrain like they do before, where you can pass through walls and stuff. And I do say this kind of with a grain of salt, because one of the leaks that we've seen is edited. The source said that there was watermarks on the page they had to remove with Photoshop, but the validity is called into question. And it says that for ruins only, infantry and beasts can move through walls and stuff, which does kind of make sense. But with the new way that benefits of cover works with these new keywords of terrain, it will incentivize people to make tables containing more than just one type of terrain, right? Because right now, basically everything is either ruins or some piece of area terrain that gives -1 to hit. We're not seeing the 4, 5, 6 other pieces of terrain that give different benefits, because they're kind of really useless.
Yeah, it's gone the way of mysterious objectives.
Right. Whereas now we have these things where it's this only gives benefits of cover to infantry and beasts. And this piece over here, it extends engagement range. Hills can also be what we would think of as a ruin or a building, but you have to go up and over it, and you can't go inside of it, that kind of thing. And they do not obscure stuff. So as far as we've seen right now, ruins are the only thing whose footprint stops line of sight completely for things behind it. So it's going to be really interesting how we're going to have to set up tables in 10th edition.
Yeah. It's funny because I thought I saw a glimpse in a box that did say that people can't go through walls, but there's so much information out there now, I can't remember everything. So we still are waiting on terrain, but it's a crucial part of the game is how we interact with terrain. So
right.
I agree.
There's still some core rules missing.
I think we're incentivized to have more types. I think it's a good start.
Yeah, we're still waiting on things like how line of sight is defined, how one figures out line of sight, that sort of thing. That's still missing. We have some USRs, not all of them, but there's some new ones we haven't seen before, which is kind of interesting, like precision. There's a stratagem which will give a character precision attacks. See if I can find page with it on there. It's like a challenge. Like my character challenges your character. And the abstraction is like
epic challenge.
Yeah. So Kenny has a unit and there's a captain in that unit. I have a unit. There's a captain in my unit. If those two units are in engagement range during the fight phase, you can play this and the characters can target each other, or like my character can target his character, even though I'm not touching. Right. So the abstraction is that there's like the big scrum and then like they're fighting all up inside of that. But my character is singling out his character, and precision is what the keyword that allows you to do that. So all of his attacks are allowed to target the enemy character, whereas normally they're not going to.
It's funny. I think I speculated there might be like a challenge mechanic back in the game.
Right. Also interesting thing with how characters who are in units work. So you cannot allocate wounds to a character in a unit until every model in that unit is dead.
Right.
Which is actually something else that we talked about as a
Yes. So that's good to know. It does say something that like, even if they've already sustained wounds, and I'd have to go in and read if it specifically says
they
like
use like
how
an
and
example
when.
of like if a plasma gun wounded you or
Yeah,
some
like
shit.
maybe a psychic mishap or something like that. So
Because
not
Gets Hot
complex wound
now is like
allocation,
D3 wounds for a character or vehicle.
right. So other than, some of these things that we have, been previewed and seen, the skeleton is relatively the same, but you're going to want to read through it for all the micro changes and stuff. And, we'll still keep talking about it as more stuff surfaces. And
The whole like diagonal fly, path of flight.
right. Yeah. Fly units during the charge phase measure ranges diagonally if things are above them.
You measure
like in a
from
piece of
literally
terrain.
physically from their base.
Yes.
Like put it down where their base is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot to dive into, a lot to read through, but those are some of the things that stuck out. We also got some faction focuses. Knights were today. Pretty interesting. And
I really like that article or those teasers today.
Yeah, they were cool. The rules seem interesting. The stat lines are dope. Canis Rex looks like he's going to ball out of control.
Rapid fire has rapid fire battle cannon has rapid fire.
Makes sense, right? It's in the name.
It's like 12 shots, man.
The Thunder Coil Harpoon is back. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of spice to it. The big thing that was going on today, though, is there's a debate on how Lay Low the Tyrant is going to work, because the wording that they chose to use for this rule is very confusing for how it actually works.
Is that one of the quests? One of the two quests?
It's the Oath ability.
The Oath, that's it.
So the two parts is you choose one of these abilities and you get that special rule for your army. And then if you accomplish the deed associated with it, you gain
You're
some
honored.
CP, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 3 CP and your army's honored.
Right. And so the Oath ability is each time this model is selected to shoot or fight, reroll a hit roll of 1 and reroll a wound roll of 1.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you guys think that's going to work? Like, give me your opinion.
Oh, I see the problem, because didn't it say that it automatically, like, ones automatically are failures to hit?
No, that's not the
No. It's
Or save of a one is automatic.
when somebody says you can reroll a 1, it because of the way at least we use English, the A makes it sound like it makes it sound like 1. So it sounds like reroll a hit roll of 1 and a hit roll or a wound roll of 1, which is what it says. But when I say it that way, it makes it seem like you can do 1 and 1, right, Rob?
I'd have to look at, but I see where you're going with it, but I'd have to read it personally.
Reroll
Right.
a hit roll of 1, and a wound roll of 1.
Yeah, it
Yes.
seems like you get 1 and 1 based by what you just said. Let me pull up the article.
But that's not what A means. It's not like what it, and also
Yeah, so there's two big parts to this. The first of which is the way that 40K actually works, is every dice roll is singular.
singular.
if I have a gun with 5 shots, the way that the rules are written is that you were to individually roll those dice to their logical conclusion of steps. But the way that we play the game, called fast dicing, and they have a designer's note in the core rules going back 2 editions of how that's going to work, is that I can roll all 5 of those dice at the same time, right? The issue with Lalo the Tyrant, the reason there's the debate, is because the wording they used is copy pasted from another rule that gives you the same benefit. But because of the first part of that sentence, there is confusion on whether or not it means all of your attacks or a singular attack. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I mean, this other oath ability is written exactly the same way as well. So add 1 to this model's move characteristic and add 1 to advance in charge rolls made for this model.
It's not the and, it's the A. Yeah. So
in common parlance, when you say go get me a something, and there's an option to get more than 1, it sounds like I said get 1.
Yeah. I see your point.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
So here's the issue.
But since we don't actually roll dice, since you roll dice 1 at a time, if it says re-roll a dice roll of 1, you roll 1 dice. If it's a 1, you can re-roll it. Re-roll, literally, it's 100% legal, fair play to interpret re-roll a dice roll of 1 as re-rolling all 1s.
Right.
It's 100%
and here's
legal
our citations, Rob. So on the Belisarius Call datasheet, he has an ability that is exactly the same wording, except it does not have the first part. It says when a friendly unit within 6 shoots or fights, you reroll a hit of 1 and reroll a wound of 1, right? Same exact rule. And then we have Oath of Moment, which is the wording that we perceive as full rerolls. So it's the hit roll, the wound roll, right? And then we have the new Eldar thing they previewed, which does clarify singular, right? You get to 1. You get 1 reroll of either a hit or a wound, like the mastercrafted rule that we've been playing for a while. So the debate comes in with the first part of the sentence where it says selected to shoot or fight. So some people are interpreting that as you only get a hit roll of 1 reroll and a wound roll of 1 reroll per activation. So if I have 10 guns and that total altogether is 20 dice, I can only get 1 of each, 1 die, right? And then other people are speculating that it's just reroll hits and wounds of 1 across the board for all attacks and whatever it might be, right? And so the irony is that they're talking about streamlining this game and they're still using language that is unclear of the intent from the developers, right? Because what was the thing that was giving us all headaches since, years and years and years is that we have to have a UN summit debate about what the developer intent with these rules is, because they just won't put it in plain wording, right? Which is frustrating because they're doing that elsewhere really, really well, with the new stratagems. So why would they not, so if the intent is per activation, why would they not say that you only get to reroll a single hit dice and a single wound dice of 1 per activation of a unit, right? That makes more sense. And it could probably even be written better than I just said it. Or when a unit is selected fight, you can reroll all hits of 1 and all hits or all wounds of 1, right? That makes so much more sense than using all of these different words that kind of mean the same thing but don't.
And the thing is, and that's why GW has had issues with reroll wording historically since 8th edition started. And where we've had multiple versions of the same thing, where it's reroll misses versus reroll all fails, right? Or reroll all. And then the all is the good word because it means you can reroll successes or fails. So they've had to tweak it based on this simple concept of you roll 1 dice at a time. So even to say reroll all dice is kind of in defiance of the mechanic of you never rolling more than 1 dice by the core rules. Jeez, that's speed dice. Right. So is the interpretation is kind of up to debate right now. They are using a copy and paste wording. And so they're already going to have to clarify this right out the gate.
Yeah. And, you know, for people listening, if you're like, it doesn't seem like a big deal. So like, let me put this into context, right? So we've seen the Warglaive, the Armiger, all of its guns totaled up. It's like 5 shots. So if it gets to reroll all hits and wounds of 1, not really a big deal. You know, like it's got a big old Melta gun and that could be real spicy, but it's still like all 3 of its guns put together, total of 5 shots. Well, what if I have, I forget the chassis name, but what if I have a Questoris Knight with twin rapid fire battle cannons where not only are they D6 plus 3 shots, but they're rapid fire D6 plus 3 shots. Yep. That could be an insane amount of firepower coming out of this thing with a strength 10, 3 damage weapon where they're rerolling all hits of 1 and all wounds of 1. And then on top of that, his other gun, right? That could be wild. That
on
could
average,
be way OP.
That's 25 shots on average from that.
Of a 3 damage weapon at strength 10. Like that's insane rerollability.
I would say the precedent that we should be looking toward, which I mentioned earlier in the tactics, is army-wide rules versus the specific wording. I feel like traditionally, when you have an army-wide reroll, it's always the conservative version of the reroll, not the best case optimization. So every knight in your army who's, you know, when you select this, benefits from this. So I would be shocked if that is a blanket open-ended, my whole army rerolls 1s to hit and wound on all shots at all times. That's kind of impressive if that's the case. That is the best fucking rule yet if that's the case.
Yeah, that's wild.
Wow, but you are 100% within your rights to interpret that wording that way.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. Like, one of my big pet peeves with 40K is a lot of these rules are kind of like, you know, that guy who uses big words to seem smarter, but he doesn't use them right. Like he uses them in the wrong context, or I mean, you don't actually, that's a bit, but like, you know what I'm talking about, like that. Everybody has known a guy like that before, or a girl like that, whatever. It's kind of like that to me, because they could write this in like dumb baby's first English where nobody
Speak and spell, baby.
Yeah. Like nobody can misinterpret a rule if you write it a certain way, but they choose not to because they want the language to be more like intelligent sounding and flowery, which is why you have rules that are like a whole paragraph. And it's like, does it need to be that long? No, it doesn't. You're just doing that so that
they tried to make it clean. They did like 2 little bullets, but they copy and pasted a phrase that they used already.
Right. So if the intent was per activation, you can only get a single die roll on the hit roll and the wound roll to reroll. Why not use the exact same rule they gave to the Eldar? Because that's what that is. Just, I don't know why they wouldn't.
Because they opened up their fucking they opened up their fucking Photoshop documents for knights, and they just copy and pasted things that were already there. Like, that's why. Because historically, you know, when you have, you know, it's when you have like those types of rerolls, like I said, it's army wide, it's like 1. Yeah. So, I mean, if that's not the case, if this gets FAQ'd and they get full reroll 1s to hit and wound whole army, that's the best DPS I've ever considered for a Night House.
I mean,
that's wild.
It's probably just an editorial thing, you know. The way
it might be, but yeah,
it's probably just something that just got overlooked.
Absolutely.
I mean, we talked about, you know, I don't know, we didn't really talk about it, but I mentioned that there's a stratagem technically missing from that rule book, and there's a blank spot on one of the pages. You know, the stratagem that they talked about. First, they said there was going to be 12 core stratagems. There's 11 in the pictures we have, and the one is missing that you can change the tactical card. The whole thing, they did a whole post on it. They're like, yo, you can change the objective with this stratagem. So that's actually missing out of there too, and that invalidates a whole Warhammer community post.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes!
But so it's just an example of there's just that it's not fixed yet. You know, it's not the fucking. Like they're still struggling because we've got some examples, Wyatt, of like perfect wording shit. Like look how on point the graphic design department has been on a lot of these things. Any new thing, here it is, Wyatt. Any new thing is flawless. Like even the way they're showing how you make your detachments using pictures and words, the way the new stratagems are telling you what, when, where, how, why. Like anything that's new is dope. Anything that's like that they scan the existing document for a quick copy paste is wrong. It's
weird. So I mean, we'll have to see what they do about it. I think cooler heads prevail on the selected word in that sentence. So when the model is selected, but it is a fair debate between the two.
It is. That's the thing. Is some people in chat have already sounded off like I'm interpreting it rerolling one until otherwise told. Like, which is, I believe in my heart, it's the conservative interpretation is probably the accurate one here. But I 100% cannot deny somebody who says they want to reroll all of them, all the ones. I've been in the game too long. I've seen the wording arguments. It's
just so weird, right? Because so if we look at the Eldari one, right, it says each time a unit from your army is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll one hit roll and can reroll one wound roll. So I can see that they want
as a precedence means all rolls of one for the knights.
Right, because if the intent is you get one activation and they want to limit it because they feel that even one hit roll and one wound roll is too powerful, they want to limit it to a hit or wound of one, then why would you not just have this exact same wording and says you can reroll one hit roll of one and you can reroll one wound roll of one? It's like that easy, but they chose to write it this way, which is like we're a month away from 10th edition and we already need a day one FAQ.
The thing is, they had ability like that in their current codex right now, worded that exact way. And I've already seen this fight over that. And I've already resolved it. So this is a literal copy and paste situation. The Eldar Codex shows the right way to write it if you want it to be only rolling one. And that's the issue. Like against anyone's argument right now for only rolling one dice. They just put out something that shows you how to word it the right way. So it's the most powerful fucking faction rule yet. for knights until if you want it to be, but before we get out of here, I think we should close out on the Death Guard just for at least a minute or two, because I've gotten an endless
trash.
Yeah, there, perfect. Endless amount of sadness from Death Guard fans around the world. And they all say it looks weak. It looks crappy. With what they just dropped. What do you think about that?
Would you say more people play Death Guard than Adeptus Titanicus?
Probably.
I mean, just as that faction versus your whole game system?
Yeah.
100%, no doubt.
Yeah, probably. So Nurgle's Gift is back as contagion range. Pretty interesting. It still kind of works the same. 3 inches on round 1. 6 inches on round 2, 9 inches on round 3. Just
I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a really useful rule. And it's the same thing. Subtract 1 from the toughness value of models and enemy units that are touching containment. Spread the Sickness is back, but as the detachment rule for the Plague Company detachment. And the way it works is it's sticky objectives, and the objectives are infected. That's the word they're using. And contagion spreads an aura from those objectives, the same as a model would. So like Plague Marines have contagion range. If I infect a objective, it also has contagion range until the enemy takes it back. They also show up Blight Lord Terminators.
Don't they get sticky objectives?
That's what it is.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah. Blight Lord Terminators are back. Movement 4 inches only, which is a little slow. We'll get to that. Up to toughness 6, still a 2-up save, still a 4-up invul. 3 wounds, leadership 6, OC1. I won't go into every one of their weapon profiles, but this is interesting because their datasheet ability, Blistering Fusillade, each time a model in this unit makes a range attack, if it targets the closest eligible enemy unit, reroll a wound of 1. Pretty good to have on your guys at all times.
It's plague weapon redux, you know?
Yeah. A lot of the weapons that we're seeing from Death Guard have anti-infantry and either lethal hits or devastating wounds. So it seems like even just like the basic ass guys with combi weapons and plague weapons are getting a big offensive buff, right? Because if I have anti-infantry 4 up, it doesn't matter what my strength value is, right? If it's lower or higher, like I always have that ability to just wound you on a flat dice no matter what.
Yeah, especially, man, dog, check it out. Motherfucking Terminators are T5. These guys are T6. They just wound those motherfuckers on 4s.
Right. So it does keep those in the fight against higher toughness enemies. Devastating wounds is great because you can pump out mortals with those. The Plague Combi Bolter has lethal hits and rapid fire too, so he gets even more shots, that kind of thing. They show off the Plague Caster. He's got some interesting stuff. Still has Plague Wind as kind of a smite type ability. And he's got a couple of datasheet abilities where he can debuff enemies. So like he can make them -1 to wound, debuff. Yeah, melee. And then the Pestilent Fallout is if I do a wound to a unit using his psychic ability, it subtracts 2 from their move and advance and charge.
When I saw this, Wyatt, I forgot to even check to see if they still discussing resilient. I forgot to even check because I was so excited about this DPS spike. Like, and that's what everyone's hit me with. Everyone is hung up on this one fucking thing. Like, what happened? They're feeling no pain. They lost that. They lost discussing resilient. Bro, I don't give a fuck about discussing resilient right now. Do you see how much DPS this Blight Lords have suddenly? That's a humongous spike. Think about that. Lethal wounds, fucking, or the devastating wounds, get in range with rerolling 1s. Fucking, like, dog, that's so much more DPS. And then you're in a fight with your fucking Malefic Blight or your, Playcaster, and now you have the Black Rune of Damnation basically in close combat on some of the 6 guys. Holy fuck, dude! People are like, trust me, guys, that's good. And simultaneously, Plague Surgeon. What do you think his ass is gonna do?
Really give him a feel of it.
If they got rid of discussing resilience in the data sheet, and they decided as an army-wide rule, we don't want that anymore, and now independent characters are back to joining squads and doing buffs and stuff, what do you think the fucking Plague Surgeon's gonna do? That motherfucker's gonna give him a 5 up Feel No Pain. So now imagine this Blight Lord squad with a 5 up Feel No Pain, Black Rune of Damnation equivalent in close combat, running around with Toughness 6, doing fucking mortal wounds and rerolling the wound rolls of 1. Fucking, that is more DPS and potentially more survivable than you're used to. And then, lest we forget, the addition of transports, all Land Raider. What about when these guys are rolling across the table in a Land Raider, get out, fucking do everything I just said in your fucking close combat right away? Like,
yeah, that's why the 4-inch move, it definitely is not good. But with transportation actually working the way it's supposed to work and vehicles being really tough and useful, I don't mind it so much.
I mean, in a vacuum, a 4-inch move is not good as well.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know anything else.
Yeah, but you know what? So they're slow. But you know what makes you
Movement-wise.
seem fast when you're slow is sticky objectives.
Yeah, and that helps too.
So they have sticky objectives, which makes them simulate speed. They have transports are good again. You have an assault ramp vehicle for these guys. They do more DPS. And they showed the fucking Plagueburst Crawler forces battle shock chests.
Right. So the mortar has blast, indirect fire, and lethal hits, which is a great set of keywords to have. And it has the spore-laced shockwaves that can force battle shock tests. And so we don't know what the entropy cannons do. We don't know what the plague spewers do. We don't even know its stat line. So much that we don't know. Like, we literally have only seen 2 data sheets. We haven't seen any of the characters or Mortarion. So like Boo on UGW for not showing me.
They alleged it was Mortarion, right? Boo.
But yeah, so like one of the biggest things that I want to tell people out there right now, if you're speculating on how your faction is going to do, it's just like, one, it's okay to feel anxious about what's going to happen, but there is so much information they are not giving us. Just look at, like, we counted up how many data sheets Space Marines had. It was like almost 100 data sheets or whatever. Like we've seen like 5, and all of these data sheets, all of these different units are going to have bespoke data sheet abilities that we don't know what those are, right? We don't know what the data sheet ability for Plague Marines is, or for Poxwalkers, or for any of the other characters, or for Death Shroud for that matter. Like if Death Shroud come out and they are balling out of control, that is usually a good sign for how Death Guard are going to play, because they're one of our power units. Same thing for the Plague Burst Crawler. It could be tougher than a Land Raider for all we know. You know, we have no idea. But if it's a solid, hard to kill, heavy hitting vehicle, that's always good for Death Guard. We don't know about Mythitic Blight Haulers or Bloatrons, 2 of our other great units for speed and DPS. Those could be fantastic, right? So we're just going to have to wait and see. The other thing is that I am not totally convinced that these faction abilities are only a singular rule. At least not for everybody. Maybe Nurgle's Gift is only this one thing. Maybe it has a couple of bullet points they're not showing us. We don't know. But we have seen from other faction focuses that the faction army rule ability can have multiple things attached to it, like we've seen with Demons and Sisters of Battle in their previews. So just wait and see. We don't know totally yet. You might get more stuff going.
Mm-hmm. So to all my Death Guard homies out there, I don't know. I wasn't looking at the same fucking data sheet you guys are looking at. I got hype. Like, so feel no pain, discussing resilience. That's not their defining characteristic, man. But thank you for the advice, Wyatt. So I think we did it. We covered a lot today. Dumpster Wars, Plague Marines, rerolls.
Dumpster Wars.
Well, I think we can close this one out. Wyatt?
Rob?
Wait, I'm here. I'll do it. So that's it for this one, guys. Thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to head on over to thelongwar.net for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.